This story about Esther is more about what I experienced her son doing. And she said, well, let me tell you the story. Over the years, she had told me all about her children, about each one of them, how they were, what they acted like, what she felt about them, what she thought they felt about her. She had a pretty good idea, like most mothers, how her children are. And this one here, well, gosh, this one's hard to tell. She talked about her drinking in the old days and what it did. Her children were raised by their father, and she knew how some of them felt about her and why they would call her Esther and not Mom. And that hurt her a lot. She wished that every one of them would call her Mom. Esther, Yuko, and I were sitting at home one day all visiting, and there was a knock on the door. I went and opened it, and when I opened it, one of her sons were standing there. And he didn't move. He didn't even start to act like he was going to come in. But he just stood there, so I left the door open and I walked over to Esther and I told her who it was. And so we just waited with the door open, which was probably about maybe 2 or 3, 4 minutes maybe. And then all of a sudden, he did move and he started to come in, and he got down. He bent way down, lifted his arms above his head, and he danced in real slow. He would dance. There was no music, and it took him even much longer to get from the door to Esther. As he was dancing in, he was dancing like he was holding something, and he used both of his hands up in the air, and he held whatever it was very high, and he danced in, and he made a gesture like laying the whatever it was in his hands on her lap. And when he did, he bowed his head. And I looked over at Esther, and she just sat there, and I realized when I looked at her, there was big tears coming down her cheeks. We were all pretty quiet. And after, again, what seemed like a long time, she reached out and she put her hand on top of his head and kept it there for a while. She removed her hand, and he stayed there. And then he kind of raised his head, and I'm not sure if he looked at his mother or not. And he danced out, just like he had danced in. Not a word was said. Nobody said anything except for the little whisper I whispered at her at who was at the door. After he left, I could tell she was sitting there and she was crying. We didn't say nothing. After a while, she kind of scooted a little bit, and I went over by her and she said, "Do you know what my son just did?" I said, "No." She said, "Remember I told you about all the heartache that went on with me and my children and what I did when I was younger about drinking?" I said, "Yeah. My son just became a man." He came in and what he laid on my lap was anything and everything I may have done to him. And he forgave me. She said, "My son just became a man." That had to be one of my favorite, best experiences I've ever had with her. She told me a lot about the Tlingit culture, but that one I got to experience by myself. She really, really loves her children. Not a doubt in my mind. That was harder to talk about and tell than I thought. I wasn't sure what story I was going to tell next. And here it is, going on 1 o'clock in the morning, and I woke up and I thought that's the next story. So you'll be missed, Esther.